Hey everybody, how's it going? My name's Brbteabreak and I'll be going over starting items in League of Legends. I'll go over every role individually, talking about starting items, which we'll see probably at Worlds, and something you can do in solo queue. And I'm only going to go over viable things, things like Rise, getting Mana Crystal, which is only one off I will avoid. So first I'll start with 80 carries. It's it's pretty straightforward. Doran's Blade for the most part. It's the best item by far to get, and there's nothing else that really compares to it. And at Worlds, we're very unlikely to see anything besides Doran's. It gives health, attack damage, and an on-hit lifesteal thing. This with Quints, which are lifesteal, you get tons of health per hit. Getting one of two of these, you pretty much never get pushed out of lane. You do get no health potions though, starting with Doran's Blade. So some people do start with Longsword and 2 health pots, but those people usually don't run health Quints, and they're usually quite bad at the game. So we'll go now to jungle items, because that's pretty straightforward, 80 items. Jungle gets one more option, really. You get, Machete 5 pot is pretty much the standard when you go to junglers, because, it can put into so many things, such as Madrids, Ancient Golem, and Elder Lizard items. And so we'll see to most junglers. Doran's Blade, you can see on some champions, maybe like a Lee Sin or an Aatrox. These champions, have really good sustain and good damage with good 80 ratios, so they're able to survive in the jungle just with a Doran's Blade. It's a bit cheesy though, so if you get like counter jungled early, or your gank fails, you have low sustain and you won't be able to live in the jungle. There's more likely to be seen on Aatrox than Lee Sin though, but only Europeans play Aatrox, and then, yeah, I'm not going to comment any further on that. Mid and top share pretty similar items for the most part, since, a lot of champions have been played in both lanes, and they both have similar roles. For the most part, well not most part, one of the builds is a Doran's Shield plus a health potion start. We'll see this on pretty much every top laner, and you'll see it on some mid laners when you're versing a ranged champion. Now the reason top laners get it pretty much in every case is because in 2v1 situations it is the best item, and if you don't start Doran's Shield, you pretty much will get beat. It's so good, it gives you health and good life regen, and it blocks auto attack damage. And a lot of the time when you get poked in top lane, it is from support, and supports obviously have very low AD. This base with, your 12 armor, which you do get from your yellows, you pretty much take very little damage from the enemy support, and also you have masteries to mitigate like 2 more damage or whatever it is. And you will see this sometimes on mid lane champions, say if you're like a Zed versus a ranged champion mid, like say an Ezreal, a Kennen, or an Italy, just because most of their damage comes from auto attacks. Doran's Ring 2 health potion starter, something we'll see on actually a lot of mid champions, and probably be seen more often mid than top, just because it gives good health, good AP, and massive regen. And also if you get ganked, you have that bit more HP and AP, which help you survive from the gank. And it's just an overall really good item. You get 2 health potions out of it also, so that's 300 health on top of that, which is also nice. You see it sometimes like a Singed top, if it's like a very easy lane, but besides that you will never see that in a top lane champion. Then we have Doran's Blade, and this item we'll see in both lanes, but it's very champion based. Champions like Kennen, Jace, or Ezreal, who can poke all day, and who keep auto attacking to heal themselves up a bunch. And they usually run like lifesteal Quints also, so they can never get pushed out of lane. And also it gives you 80 health still, your 80 health, which is tons. It makes you really tanky when you get ganked early on. And yeah, this is more of a champion based item. We won't see it that much. Mainly Kennen, we won't see that many Ezreal mids, and we don't see many Jaces either. Crystalline Flask and 3 health potions, something we see a lot of champions, such as say a Fizz, a Jack, or a Singe. And I picked up as first item, obviously this is what the video is about. It has good sustain, and Flask is always relevant, you can always use it throughout the whole game. And a lot of times used on champions who are versing an AP champion, and because there's no good starting items to mitigate AP damage, you start Crystalline Flask. So say if you're versing, say you're Fizz mid and you're versing Gragas. Obviously you don't want to go Cloth 5, you don't want to go Doran's, either of the Doran, so you go Crystalline Flask 3 health pots to survive the laning phase. And it's just a really good item all around, and regen's always good. And the only way to counter AP champions is to get regen, because non-magic mantle starts is not a thing. It's 400 gold, and yeah, you either get something else with health. Then we have Red Elixir and 3 health potions. You see this in both lanes, mainly on champions who are really aggressive and are likely to win the lane. So on a champion like Renekton for top lane, who can go all in, or a Zed for mid lane, and you can get to an early lead and you can snowball out of control. The one problem with a red flask or elixir start is that you spend all your money on consumables at level 1. Something like all these other ones, like crystalline flask, you can keep using for the whole game. The Doran starts, they all are items which you can use and sell later, where red flask or red elixir you use and it's gone. So it's very snowbally, and it can, you have to win with that item. Then we have these Faerie Charm starts, which these are more solo queue things. You never actually see this often. This is the more popular build in rank in competitive games, but you never see these builds really in tournament play. And they're just good because you get good regen, you get a ward, lots of health potions, and they all build into items. The problem is though, it's only 180 gold being spent on an actual core item. Well, you can say Doran and stuff, there's 400 gold wasted on a non-core item. They're very good items just in themselves, and you usually keep them. And you might sell them, say, when you get your 4th or 5th item. So they're pretty relevant, where Faerie Charms are quite weak. The top lane's pretty much the same thing again, except you're less likely to see Faerie Charms and more likely to see Rejuve beads. So on some certain champions, maybe like a Shen or something like that. And last but not least, you have your Cloth 5 start, which is it's pretty popular, I guess. Not as popular as before. It's usually against champions who are like in unfavorable matchups, and it's more if you're trying to avoid AD damage or physical damage over auto attack damage. And the reason this is also a good item is because it builds into something like a Seeker's Arm Guard for mid champions, Ninja Tablet for top champions. Builds into Omen, all those good items. And it's the most expensive non-Doran starting item, which is actually viable in the game. So if you can go even in the lane with starting Cloth 5, you're more likely to be ahead, very, very slightly, that is, very slightly ahead of your opponent in full item build. So that's why Cloth 5 is always a good option if you're in a losing lane, and if you can survive. Supports have the most mixed, I guess, choices when it comes to the builds they can go. And it really depends if you go 16 utility or not. As many supports, which you saw on some of the later Korean games and some NA teams, mainly Cloud9, they opt for more defensive masteries over going 16 into utility. So the first two builds here, these have Explorer Awards and Biscuits, which mean you're going 16 points into utility. 16 points? Let's just double check quickly. Masteries, go. Support. 16, yep, 16 masteries. 16 points into the support tree. And you either get a Faerie Charm or a Rejuve bead, 1 pink, 2 greens, and a couple of red pots. Or you can get no pink and you can get 3 wards or something like that. And this is something you probably play in solo queue the most, just because it has good, your GP fires quicker than you would starting just wards. You have a good number of wards still, and you have good regen. Now these next two builds are still 16 utility builds, and these are more something you see in competitive games, where support starts with only consumable items, so you won't get a Faerie Charm or a Rejuve bead early on. So they get the gold for a bit later, and yeah, these are mainly for the early game. Or support just by wards in competitive games mainly. The only difference is the pink ward here, which will make pink ward and 1 health potion, but you do lose 2 green wards over, so it depends what you want. This is a lot more popular recently, mainly in Korea, where this is more like an NA thing, but slowly being transitioned over to this. And the last build is something we've seen, more recently, mainly if you watch OGN last week, like a couple of days ago, between SKT Telecom 1 and KT Bullets, where pretty much every game support player didn't go into the support masteries. We're not deep enough anyway to get the ward and the biscuit plus a gold bonus. And so they always went with these opening builds. This opening build, sorry, right here at the bottom. And the only game we saw which didn't go this build was a Nami game, where she actually went to the full 16 support masteries. So this may be more of a champion thing where, depending on what champion you get, you might get defensive masteries. It was seen on Zara every game they got this build, and the other support champions differed every game, so it's hard to tell. See, supports probably have the most choice when it comes to openings. Mids and top also have good choice. Junglers and 80 carries, you have no real choice when you get your items. And beginning items are a very big deal in League of Legends for the most part. If you pick a bad opening, you can lose the lane. If you start, say, with Doran's shield and you end up versing an AP champion for some reason, if you don't know what you're buying, you pretty much will lose the lane just based off that fact. And yeah, so learning opening item build is very important. So yeah, that's pretty much every viable, that is, starting build in League of Legends at the current time. As I said before, things like Mana Crystal on Ryze or Brawler's Gloves on, say, Tryndamere top lane. You can maybe use that and that's been a bit of cheese here and there, but that's not really viable for the most part. So hopefully you guys learned something about starting items in League of Legends. Hopefully you can use this to understand the game better, or understand when you're watching competitive games, understand what the pro players are thinking. If you think I've missed something or you have an opinion, leave a comment below. I'd like to see some discussion on things that's like talking about Doran's shield versus Cloth 5 armor, what do you think's better, or these Doran ring starts, which have been very popular lately over Faerie Charms. If you like the video, subscribe. I'm going to be doing more of these videos in the coming days, especially when we get more closer to Worlds. And yeah, this has been Brbteabreak, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.